Welcome to the Advisor AI Solutions podcast, where we uncover how forward thinking leaders are transforming construction, scaling smarter, and building the future today. I'm your host, Jordan Salvador, and today I'm joined by Stanley Adwell from Intellisteel, a company pioneering the next evolution in construction, where digital precision meets on site manufacturing, while Intellisteel's mobile steel framing technology brings the factory to the field, producing fully certified high performance structures with speed and accuracy once thought impossible. Stanley's leadership and Intellisteel's vision have redefined what's possible, bridging the gap between design, manufacturing, and compliance in a way that's revolutionizing how we build. Stanley, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Jordan. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So here's the big idea we're unpacking today. Certification isn't a barrier, but perhaps it's actually a blueprint for trust and scalability. So today we're going to explore how Intellisteel is streamlining project certification, accelerating timelines, and setting how global standards for how technology, precision, and leadership come together in the field. So, Stanley, take us back to the beginning. How did Intellisteel originally come to life?
So Intellisteel started originally. I got introduced to this technology in about 2013, where the technology that we utilize, which is the world leading technology used around the world, the owner of that technology was considering stepping into North Central and South America, and he had not had a full blown success there yet. He had machines and technology in certain areas, but nothing had unified. His idea was, do I make the investments and step into the Americas, which would be a huge investment on his part, or do I just stay where I'm at right now and continue to dominate? So he basically brought me in to help him decide and evaluate that scenario. And it was not something I was looking for, nor do I have experience in prior. I had a design engineering company that I had sold just before, and I had not really planned to do something right away when this call came in. But it was intriguing, and the owner is a visionary, and that's what convinced me. The person I knew who introduced me convinced me to get on the phone with him for that reason. He said, "You two will get along great," and we did. And then 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to New Zealand, where the technology was born originally and is used worldwide. So I show up in New Zealand. I walk in, and instantly you can feel the feeling of this innovative thinking inside of this building. And then you can see the factory, and then you can see the hardware, and then you can see the software. And then I went on a mission to find out, before I made a decision on this, was to find out, how does it apply itself into the field? So I ended up going to New Zealand originally, Australia, Japan, Kuala Lumpur, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and Dubai. Every place I went, the technology application got bigger, and it got more involved, and the scale was larger, and the speed was faster. And it was just overwhelming of how obvious this was. Now, this is 2013, and the US was just coming out of its 2010 doldrums, right? And so everything was back on. And I figured, look, if it's going to come back at or greater than where it was before, we are still building the way we did 150 years ago, and everybody around the world is building like this. Why are we not? So I made some calls, talked to some people. All the developers said, yes, absolutely, we'll do this. None of them did. So I basically spent the next 4 years helping set up the foundation for North, Central, and South America, and creating more or less a platform, a unified platform where new users that would adopt the technology and existing users that had the technology could then come together and lift the industry out from where it was. And there's challenges in each one of them. There's challenges in Latin America because they use a certain style of material, whether it's brick or concrete. In North America, they use wood primarily. So both of them were entrenched in their ideas. You cannot do it any other way than this way, and you can't do it any way than this way. So trying to convince that, Jordan, was a lot more difficult than I thought. It took a lot longer than I expected. But nonetheless, it was so obvious to me that if this does grab hold, we will change construction. So I spent 4 years helping set up North, Central, and South America. I realized that to scale this, it was going to take someone to step out one more level and really apply this technology and start speaking with these architects and engineers and owners. And we did, and doing it was difficult in the beginning, but we would get a project here, we get a project here, we get a project here. Not the consistency that manufacturing needs, but we continued to make headway. And then from when I started Intellisteel in 2016 until about 2020, it was exactly as I described. 2020 was the pivot, right? This is when things changed. I was considering whether or not this industry was going to ever accept it, meaning that I was able to compete directly with and beat concrete and everything else very easily. But it never made sense to me why we couldn't beat wood when we are 7 times stronger and 50% lighter. So I just kept saying to myself, look, we got to find a way to make this work. So I had relied on outside engineering. I then brought inside engineering into the factory. We studied all of the applications of it. And then the next thing you know, we found out that we can beat wood. When we found that secret sauce, we were almost out of business. Okay. I was about to close the doors. And about that time, a blessing occurred, right? So about that time, COVID hit. When COVID hit, wood went through the roof. 80% of the US is dominated by, construction and commercial residential. And now wood was impossible for a developer who had already spent all their money to get this project going forward. It's now no longer available. So then what? So they couldn't go to concrete. They can't go to wood. So they're stuck with us. And we're in this little middle. And we just figured out how to beat wood after about a year of engineering in-house. That's what got Intellisteel to where it is today.
That is a fantastic journey that we just went on there, Stanley.
Sorry.
No, I love that. That was great. Just to unpack it a little bit, but to have the boldness to step into something you've never done, travel around the world and see how things are being done, and recognizing that innovation and the processes, and then being able to bring it back home and trying to adapt it, right? It sounds like you weren't just trying to solve a construction problem, but you were actually reimagining an entire process, right? And then to be able to get to a point where things are working, but then almost fail at the same time, and then persevere to just all of a sudden springboard because of COVID. I think that's brilliant.
Jordan, when you think about it, right? So construction hasn't been innovated on the job site in more than 150 years. It's the same way. I mean, they've invented design engineering, BIM capability, 3D modeling, but that's on the design side. What hasn't changed is how they construct. And that construction has gotten us to the same place it's gotten us before COVID and certainly after COVID. And that is we have a national deficiency for housing, affordable housing availability, and every construction project is plagued with rising construction costs, longer schedules, delays, and all that impacts me and you, right? And all the viewers that are on here. We all live in a home that's constructed. So we all end up having to pay more for the inefficiencies that have gotten worse over time, when in fact there's technologies that were out there that are being used around the world that would make an immediate impact. I really bought into the visionary idea of the technology and what it was doing already around the world. And then I saw it. And then when I saw it, it didn't take long to think that of course we're going to do this. I just wasn't ready for how much resistance there was. But it is one of those things where you just keep your head down. You're maniacal in your belief that it's going to work at some point if you can make it, right? And I was basically at the point where I almost didn't make it. And, then it twitched. And then when it switched right now, it's hard to describe how much business is happening. We've had to open up another factory in Texas. We're opening another factory in Michigan, and we're looking at another. And that's purely on demand, not out of wanting to expand.
That's fantastic. I love hearing the successes and the growth capabilities, and what you guys have in the forefront. That's terrific. What kind of projects do you guys actually would you say you specialize in, or is it kind of your bread and butter?
So cold form steel has all these wonderful attributes into certain types of projects, but there's some things it doesn't do well, right? So the best way to describe it is that anything that stacks, right? So anything that stacks vertically or anything that is repeatable, the same repeatable. So either way, so whether that's 200 of, 4 or 5 models in a subdivision, that works. If I did 3 of those, it wouldn't work. Doing a custom home, doing, one-off homes or 10 homes, it doesn't work. And I'll explain to you why. But what does work, and also we don't do big distribution warehouses like my factory is in, because tilt-up wall and or bar joist, just it makes sense for this type of building. A hangar, we don't do that. What we do really, really well is everything that stacks vertically. So that, just think of, right, all these walls that stack up where all the units inside stack up and look the same. Hotels, senior living, multifamily apartments, memory care, student housing, right? Everything is just, it's how construction's done. It's all stackable. Well,
Mm-hmm.
once you introduce cold form steel into that, now, because we beat wood, we obviously really beat by a long shot concrete. So now we've opened the door to an entire, probably the largest sector of building construction that happens in the US is in those sectors: hotels, student housing, apartments, right? Especially in this housing crisis, the apartments have blown up, right? So those are where we stick. That's I would call it our core, our wheelhouse, or as you put it, our bread and butter. And that's where we focus on.
Okay. You've said it a couple times that you guys have beaten wood and you guys have beaten concrete. What exactly do you mean by that?
So, historically in the industry, and I've dealt with this because I've been in it since everybody was saying cold form steel is more expensive. Historically, it has been. So everybody, if you talk to most developers and most general contractors, because of the inefficiencies and difficulties with wood, its quality, its availability, its volatility, its dimensional instability, and then its susceptibility to termites, rot, mold, etc., they would tell you, if I could build with metal, I'd have done this 25, 30, 50 years ago, right? But they couldn't, because it wasn't competitive in cost. What happened is technology came in, right? Now the introduction of technology into a higher quality product that is more resilient, sustainable, durable, resistant, lighter, and stronger. Now, for the first time in the last, I would call it in the last few years, has been recognized as being able to beat wood. And I mean that by saying that if you take a frame wood building and you take that same building and build it with cold form steel, on hard cost alone, we beat them, right? We beat them
Mm.
anywhere, depending on the state, between $2 and $5 a square foot. So that's first. Then you have these follow-on insurance savings. Then you have these schedule savings, right? All these costs end up cascading and waterfalling to a much better profit margin for both. The owner gets a better building, they get a quicker building, the general contractor gets more margin, which they're used to having. They have less complications on the job site because it's a puzzle. And then the owner himself gets the largest return on investment, which they've been suffering for, a couple of decades of never a project coming in on budget and on schedule. We changed that instantly.
I love the level of benefits across the board that you
Yeah.
guys are able to offer with your guys's product. That's terrific. Okay, so Stanley, um, maybe we can jump into our topic today, as far as the future of project certification goes. So many people, they still think certification just slows things down. What do you think the biggest misconception about certification in the construction world is?
Well, one of the first big misconceptions that happen in what I see is that every municipality is slightly different. Every architect and engineer interprets the code slightly different. And some products require certain certifications in some markets that they don't in others. So it kind of creates this mixed bag of a blur, right? You don't know what's actually applying. And then you have an architect in Chicago is used to dealing with certain items, doing a project in Florida, for example, and it doesn't apply. And those certification gaps between those become an issue. And I think that the misconception is A is that you have to have a specific certification because an architect or an engineer has told you so. Now, I have on too many of occasions gone in and challenged those and found out that if you just look about 3 paragraphs down in that same code that they're applying to something, or that same certification they're applying, there are exceptions to those that have already been vetted out long ago. But because it continues to be the same repeatable cut and paste, let's go, certifications become um, uh, uh, sometimes an unnecessary hindrance where they don't really apply. And I think and that situation affects pretty much everything in construction. Some people think you have to have this much. Some people think that cold formed steel transmits sound differently than wood. It's not true. That's just a thought, right? So they think you have to certify a different type of assembly for that. It's not true. Doesn't require that. And there's a lot of that happens in every part of construction. And I think certifications are critical because they do make sure that they're, especially the safety certifications, right? Those safety certifications in construction are critical. And what happens is people take an unfamiliar product or material like ours, don't have the time or don't take the time to go and investigate it and understand it and see how it applies to those certifications, see how it improves those certifications, and often will just deny the certification because they don't know it. And then who suffers? Everybody in the stakeholder, the owner, the architect, the general contractor, the engineer, and the occupant. Everybody suffers because there wasn't the opportunity to get what was already available to them because it was unfamiliar or unseen. And I think that a better visibility in certifications and a better understanding of how to read the certifications and their qualifications, qualifiers, and exceptions are critical in everything that we do.
Absolutely. I think that everything you said there, as far as certification, to be able to align it with safety, align it with different municipalities.
Yeah.
It's not just a brand asset. It's not just a box to check, but it's just
Right.
something that has to align with the entire project itself, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. So Sally, for leaders listening, what's practical framework that they could potentially use to help simplify certification, especially when managing multiple municipalities or jurisdictions, or even in more complex builds?
One of the things that we use as a base for what we do before we do anything in our industry and our company specifically is we start with knowing more than the person we're talking to before we get on the phone, right? So it's usually doing a deep dive. And there is a lack of deep dive that occurs. And I think that for owners that are looking at the qualifications and certifications, read what's there and then read the next line, right? And I'm not saying that people don't. What I'm saying is there's a common human nature is to take what someone who might have a seal tells you. What I mean by that is an architect seal or an engineer seal, etc. What I would tell you is I think that you end up having a scenario where if you take a few moments and understand what the certification is, does, allows, and its exceptions, I think you can change the way that you approach the certification of something and sometimes either improve it along the way or improve it for yourself.
I love that. Understanding something just a little bit more, you're able to maximize the potential of what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's
Yep.
that's
And
wonderful.
I think Jordan, because everybody's moving so fast and there is so much work to be had and everybody is busy. I get it, right? We all do. We all sometimes can't do what we would like to do, right? But some things like certifications, you have to do what you have to do first before you do what you want to do, right? And I think that in certifications, in uh, in our design engineering of looking at the codes and things like that, we have no choice but to go one extra step because that extra step might be the answer that saves everything, or a part, or margin, or speed, or something for the stakeholders that we all benefit from.
Right. Yeah, and you're so right about it. With everything going on and moving so fast, it's hard not to cut corners along this process.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, things evolve and that they improve. So, say as digital twins or AI validation and blockchain certification things like that evolve, where do you see the process heading in, say, the next few years?
Certainly, I think we all know and we all have come to terms with the fact that AI is transforming everything. You know, I remember the day that I saw internet for the first time and I thought it was amazing. And I see this the same times 1,000, right? It's just exponential. And I see its applications and its opportunities to take what we were just talking about, right? Like take those items that we don't necessarily see or have to read into and bring them right to the forefront up front. That means everything speeds forward. And then we get a chance to evaluate that even closer. And then we have something that helps us to evaluate that times exponential, right? So I think that there is going to be such a massive improvement through just the baseline application of AI into every part of the business, whether it's and I'll tell you that as a company, we are applying it to the entire foundation of our business, whether it's accounting or production or inventory or purchasing or engineering and detailing. We've already started those tools, right? And what we've seen in those tools is frightening in a good way, because what we're seeing is we have the ability to come now and bring forward all the benefits that you can get from this kind of computational analysis and research in a moment, in a blink of an eye, and apply it to something that benefits everybody across the board. And I think that that is something that I don't know if any of us can fully understand how powerful it's going to be. But what I have already seen in just the little bit that I've gotten involved in, it is remarkable.
Right. Yeah, and some people they would argue that certification always slows things down. So do in your mind, do you think true automation with, digital verification, do you think that's ever going to be absolutely seamless?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be seamless, Jordan. I think that what we were just talking about enables that kind of seamlessness to so many parts of the things that have been disconnected in every part of construction and every part of material and every part of material application. I think that because new materials come out and then the codes take longer to adopt, I think we're going to see an acceleration in code adoption because there's going to be available information so much quicker and so much more comprehensive. It will allow for more things to come forward to everybody. And I think, like certifications, a certification is really an analysis process and it's got to check the box and follow. I think that you're going to start seeing AI move straight into that analysis. And I think it's going to improve it across the board. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to give us things that we've never thought we could have. And I think it's going to do things for all of us that are going to improve both our lives. I don't look at AI as something as a job taker. I look at it as a job creator and a job accelerator. And I don't see it as any kind of threat. And I know a lot of people kind of get that mentality. No, I think it's going to make what you do exponentially better. And how powerful to have that kind of capacity on your shoulders, right? And as a backpack to what you're doing.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, of course, I'm a big proponent of AI, and
Yeah,
I absolutely love it. Um, but yeah, as far as the construction industry, I think there's going to be some big waves coming shortly. Just with the several conversations we've had with guests on their show and what the potential trends that we're moving towards, it's very exciting time to be in the industry.
it is.
Okay, so maybe on the counter side of how things are advancing, Sally, what would you say the biggest bottleneck Intellisteel faces today as you guys are growing globally?
The RC factor, the resistance to change factor, it exists deeply. It is so entrenched in our 150-year plus construction industry. And it is also, I think we have two things that are working against us. One of them is those that have been in the industry so long are going to have an inherent resistance to change, right? And that's just an age bracket that manages a large part of what's been going on for decades. we also have a lot fewer individuals going into construction because they see it as what construction has been, right? So I think that we're gonna have a diminished opportunity to bring in youth into construction that would have this inherent ability to understand AI and then apply it and drive construction forward. But what I'll tell you is we've had schools come in here, vocational schools and colleges come into our factory. And it's really interesting to watch just the eyes and the body language. They come into this like they're coming on a field trip and they have to come here and they're ready to get out, right? The second we move them through design engineering and they start seeing all the 3D screens, right? And they start seeing the BIM modeling happening. And then we walk outside and they see all this happening in just absolute exponential speed. And now they're watching everything go together like a puzzle. It changes their perception of construction and thinking, oh, there's actually a technology driver behind this. It's
Right.
not I have to go pick up some lumber or go move some masonry cement blocks, right? Now they're seeing it different. I hope that this the more of us like me that are out there and others that are doing any type of advanced construction, modular or hybrid or facade or roll forming like we do, I hope that the the youth will see that and bring forth what they're learning that we don't. I don't have that as a base, but they do. Bring that forward into construction. But I think the resistance to change factor is so heavy still. It is changing, but I think that is what the biggest inhibitor is into construction today.
So that's something that's a term that I've never heard of, the RC factor. That's
Mm.
great that you shared that. Yeah, I imagine, trying to change the way people think, how they haven't changed, thinking for years and years, and then being able to show them something new. Sometimes it's just quite reluctant, right? But also, yeah, the skilled labor gap. Imagine that's also going to be such a big issue, across the world, right? Especially in construction. So as far as the RC factor, the resistance to change, how are you guys approaching that right now to kind of flip the opinions of say architects or designers or developers out there?
It's been and it still kind of is. It's on a case by case basis, right? So we don't have any salespeople. We don't have any sales. I don't even have a presentation material. But we've got 12 million square feet between now and 2027, and we're landing projects on a weekly basis in the multitude. So we're turning down projects at some point because we're starting to hit capacity. That's all, Jordan, been on direct word of mouth, direct referral, or direct visual of seeing something like a project went up. We did a project in Michigan. No one's ever seen cold form steel, and no one's ever seen panelized cold form steel like we do, like you see over my shoulders, right?
Hmm.
Um, no one's ever seen it. And in 5 months, we picked up 16 buildings in Michigan just because the people saw it, walked it, wanted to know it, saw how fast it went, talked to the people on site, talked to the installers and said, and these are all people who, by the way, this project happened to be already permitted in wood. The owner saw
Hmm.
the value that we talked about before, recognized the savings, spent money at that time to rechange it again to cold form steel. And then they went to market and all the general contractors didn't want to do it because why? They only do wood. They don't know anything else. They don't want to try anything else. And it sounds scary to them. And I get why, because for them, it's traditional construction pushes them in a position where they take an exponential amount of risk to put something together that historically hasn't gone together right on paper. And then they're required to do it. We do all that up front. I spend 80% of our time up front, 20% manufacturing. So we take all that from them. And when they see it for the first time, Jordan, I'm telling you, I mean, like a wood framer, right? A guy's got all of his stuff on, right? These are craftsmen, skilled guys who've been doing this for 20 years. When you walk up to them and you take that belt off and you hand them one drill and you hand them a packet of screws and a level, it's just, it takes them a second. They don't understand. Their craft is gone to them in their mind. The same thing happens with owners and general contractors. They they resist until they see it. And when they walk on and they see it, you can instantly see an immediate change. And I can tell you that to be so true that I've had owners, reps, and superintendents who have left their businesses where they've been and they've come to work for us because they believe that what we're doing is a part of the pivotal construction paradigm shift. And we're doing that right now ourselves.
That's very exciting to hear. You have a product and service that basically sells itself,
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah,
Well, I think it does. We go through a whole lot of resistance for them to understand the cost, because we have to go through, in their mind, they're going through cost a certain way. When they finally see that we're cheaper than wood, that's when things change. Then they're like, okay, well, now we can kind of believe it. Now let's take advantage of the other items. Now it's an obvious. Now let's go execute. And then you still have to
right.
execute. And that's important.
Yep. Well, the numbers don't lie, right? If you're able
Right.
to show that on paper, then it's like, all right, it's tough to
Yeah.
argue.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stanley, what would you say is a recent? You mind sharing a recent project with us that best reflects Intellisteel's philosophy, and what system or framework made that possible?
You sure? Yeah, and kind of one I was just speaking about a minute ago.
Hmm.
So there was that project. You got to imagine an owner has gone through and permitted a project. That permitting process for a developer and owner is so costly, time consuming, frustrating, and expensive. Then they take that and they put that in the hands of uh, a, a group of general contractors to tell them the best way to build it. Well, the problem is those plans are never fully complete, and the structural plans are never fully complete. And then what happens is the general contractor is told, go out and build this for the cheapest amount of money, take all the risk, and figure out how to build it on site. They have no idea, so their costs go up, right? Mine would too if I was in that scenario. But let's take an example of there was a 5-story project that was in wood, located in Michigan. And remember, we're in Florida shipping to Michigan. We were able to demonstrate through our cost savings that the owner was able to save $5.50 a square foot just on the framing package only. And taking that from a wood environment, a wood market up in Michigan, up in the Midwest, where no one's ever done it, and the general contractor absolutely did not want to do this, was forced to go through the process with us because the owner had made the decision. And if they were going to get the contract, they were going to do it in metal, and it was going to be with Intellisteel. So they came down and visited us. So we took these guys who were absolutely resistant, guys and gals who were resistant. They came in and they loved it when they saw it. They were skeptical, but they still loved it. They thought, wow, if this works, then this is great. So taking a project from what it was already designed and permitted to converting it, then converting all of the stakeholders, the general contractor, the engineer who was new to it, and the architect, was a task in and of itself. It's a process. It's a timely process because you got to convince everyone. But then when the building goes up and they do save the money and the schedule comes in on time, and then you hear about all these other savings that we don't even quantify that everybody gets to value to themselves, like the general contractor saving time and saving trades, and the owner saving money on dumpsters, for example. Imagine this: a wood building that goes up will spend about $250,000 in dumpster fees just on the framing package of wood alone. Imagine 4 dumpsters in each corner of a project, filled and dumped twice a week of just wood waste. Just wood waste. We have less than 3% from start to finish. So they're about 26 to 27%. We're at less than 3%. That savings equated to about $250,000 to this project. The owner
Oh,
was
wow.
not prepared for that, and they lost it. They were so happy. Then and now they get an insurance savings. Why? No termites, no mold, no mildew, no cracks, no maintenance, no wind, no seismic, no fire, no flood. Right? We're completely impervious to those. So if we're impervious to those with the same building, their insurance dropped by like 60%. So now that insurance dropped 60% times the life of their hold of that project, until as long as they hold it. So these are so massive and so significant, and I don't even get a chance to get that far. My convincing is just on the hard framing cost. That once they get past and they see the rest of that, Jordan, we have every one of if you looked at my board, our entire board, I think there's 64 projects up there. They're all repeats. They're all from the same owners, or all referrals from those owners to other developers or general contractors who worked with us. And now they lead with us to their owners, because they can tell their owners, hey, I can get your project down a little bit because it's not coming in under budget. I can get it to budget. It's That's the exciting part. You can tell just because I get pretty excited just talking about it,
Yeah.
because that really is happening. And when you see that happening, and we know how hard this has been to get here, but yet how readily available it is. I mean, I help all the people that are in my industry that would be competitors. They're not competitors. We're all teammates. We're all working to get a better construction philosophy and a construction applicability into this market, because it needs to be a realistic option for owners, developers, and general contractors, where before it never was. It wasn't even seen.
That, you know, Stanley, that's absolutely fabulous. Like your passion for the business absolutely shines through in this conversation, and the way you speak about it. But the way that the level of benefits are absolutely tremendous as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got projects
Sorry.
right now. We've got projects slotted already, awarded. They're in engineering right now in 16 states. So the majority of our projects probably are Midwest, Southeast. So we've got projects in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Texas, Kansas, Arkansas, Mississippi, and I think that might be it. And we got some more somewhere else too. South Carolina, and we have in New Jersey.
Sounds like you guys are full speed ahead. I love it.
It's a lot. I always say there's fun. It's funny because, I went through a survivability mode, right? Where I wasn't going to make it, right? And you're still, you're trying to make sure you can make payroll and things like that. That emotion. I mean, that stress is very stressful, right? Because, you've got people who depend on you, right? And I'm a small company at this period of time. And when you start to go through the growth that we're in a straight vertical growth right now, an astronomical growth. What we're doing right now, what we'll have done by the end of the next year won't have been done on the globe in terms of number of projects, number of locations geographically, and the volume of just sheer square feet. That and project type. So that's going to change the map. The map is going to recognize that one way or the other. And I would tell you that the emotions, the stress is the same. The emotions are different. One is surviving to get a breath, and one is I can't get enough breaths because we're moving so fast. I enjoyed both of them, to be honest with you, because if I didn't have this stress here, I could never have been in a position to accept and manage the stress here. So, anybody, this is just a general message, whoever sees this, anybody who's in doing anything that they believe can benefit and has the vision on it. And I know this is cliche, but you got to embrace the suck. You got to enjoy the part that's terrible. You must embrace it, because whatever is happening to you in the negative is actually exponentially positive if you can just tread water long enough. And that doesn't mean that's easy and you lose your breath a bunch, but when you can tread water long enough, all of a sudden when it takes off. And we've been amazingly blessed for that reason.
I love that quote, embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And that's a great piece of advice to all of our listeners. But Stanley, absolutely enjoyed this phenomenal conversation today. But for our audience of builders, architects, and innovators, where can our listeners find you? And you mind sharing any of your socials or any
Sure.
projects you want us to check out?
We don't. I mean, my website's terrible, right? It's probably the same website I had, I don't know, since I started, so it's not good. What I would tell you to do is to better understand is jump on our LinkedIn. Our LinkedIn is giving now. We're starting to give project photos, lots of project videos. We're starting to give some educational updates. I'm starting to explain more about what's going on, and I'm answering questions. We've done 350 of these kind of question and answer sessions with all these owners and engineers. So we've collected all these and we created kind of a frequently asked questions, and we're starting to tell that, and that helps tell the story. So I think LinkedIn is the best way to see it. And also you can find a lot of Intellisteel's videos and projects on YouTube, and then
Yeah,
they're welcome to reach out to us.
I've been following some of the material that you guys have been posting. It looks great. Some of the tours of the facilities, absolutely
Super.
gorgeous.
Super.
Okay. So today's conversation obviously proves that certification isn't the enemy. Efficiency is. What Intellisteel shows us is that when design, manufacturing, and compliance move in sync, trust becomes your biggest competitive edge. Love what you guys are doing over there. Stanley, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your vision and your drive for innovation. It's clear you're just not just building structures, you guys are building systems for the future.
Yes.
And if you guys have enjoyed this episode, visit us at advisoraisolutions.com or follow along on Instagram at advisorai.solutions. And remember, consistency creates confidence. Until next time, automate the ordinary, scale the extraordinary.